Rachel Parlett here from the Classroom Nook, and I'm going to walk you through some of the major components of a reader's notebook. So to begin, I just want to let you know what you'll need material-wise for your reader's notebook. I have a 1-inch notebook here. You might be able to get away with a 1/2 inch, but 1 inch worked really well for me, especially as the year went on and there was more things that were added to the notebook. 1 inch worked out really well. You'll also need 4 dividers, and then the papers, however you want to organize it, but the papers that are going to go into it. So you're just going to need the 1-inch binder, the dividers, and then any papers that you're going to be putting in your notebook. So let me show you what I have in my reader's notebook. My reader's notebook is broken up into 4 sections. So the first section is my reading goals and progress. So I always have a cover sheet for the beginning of each section, preceded by a divider. And before that first divider, you might have maybe in here some of your routines and procedures, your reader's workshop rules, anything that's specific to your classroom that's just kind of extra information about reader's workshop in general. You might have that before that first divider. Then once you get into the first divider, like I said, it's my reading goals and progress. And then within that section, I have a few important components. The first is reading goals. So at the beginning of each month, I have students choose a reading goal that they want to work on during that month. And it may be the same goal that they worked on the last month, maybe just an added layer to it, or you tweak it, or maybe it wasn't a good fit and so you have to rework it. However it is, they pick a reading goal. So I have 3 different types of reading goals that I allow my students to choose. I have reading behavior goals, book selection goals, and reading strategy goals. And so in our reading conferences, and of course at the beginning of the year, we talk in depth about how to choose a reading goal and what a reading goal looks like and how to make a plan for it. But as the year goes on, I put more of that responsibility on the students to choose their reading goals. That comes from things that we've talked about in their reading conference. I might suggest a reading goal for them, but hopefully they learn to take on that responsibility and start to see those reading goals that they need for themselves. So like I said, there's the behavior reading goals, and those are things like make sure they're staying on task. And so how it works is they see a possible goal, and then this column over here helps them know if that's a goal that they need for them. So the goal is staying on task. They may need this goal if I get easily distracted during reader's workshop time. So that's just kind of a guide for them to follow if they need that goal. I would suggest that they choose no more than 1 or 2 reading goals to focus on at a time, even if you notice that they may need more than one. Students typically can't really focus on more than 1 or 2, so choose the ones that are most pressing, and then once they maybe master that or gain some progress in that, you can go on to the next goal. So they put their monthly goal here. So whenever you start, whether it's in August or July or September, you put the month there. They write their goal. They can either put it in their own words or write it right from the goal here. And I should also mention that goals are not limited to what's on this sheet. These are just pretty standard common goals that students need when they're working through their reading. So they write the month there, the goal that they're working on, and then just a brief plan of what they're going to do. And again, when you introduce the idea of reading goals, you go in depth on how to choose a plan. What are you going to do? What are the steps to reaching your goal? And then after that month is done, they write a quick reflection. It could just be bullet style. It could be phrases, however you want them to do it, on how they did with their goal. Now, if they get to the end of that month and they say, well, I didn't really reach my goal, they can put it down for the next month, maybe come up with a new plan if that first plan didn't work for them, or maybe you could help them come up with a better strategy to reach their goal, and then hopefully they'll be able to reflect upon it knowing that they've reached the goal. Also in the reading goals and progress section, I have a sheet here where they record their Just Right books. Now I'm sure you know Just Right book reading, Just Right books for each student are those books where they can read them on their own. So at the beginning of the year, you have them date it. And again, you talk in depth about how you choose a Just Right reading level book. They record their Just Right level here. And then as they go through the year, maybe once a month, you want to have them reevaluate, and they would record their reading level Just Right book here. And hopefully they see themselves progressing and going up in reading levels. And then finally, they can take that reading level progress that they recorded over here, and they can create a graph for it. So If you are working in the very young grades and you have students who are starting at, say, level A, if you're using the DRA system, you would have them write A in this box. But if you're in the upper elementary grades and your students aren't on A, then just have them start at, like, say, N and then work their way up. So they don't have to put one for every single letter if you know they're never going to be at letter A. So that what they would do is they would write A, B, C, D all the way up, or whatever letter you're starting on, and then several times a year you can have them graph their progress. So if you're in 3rd grade and your student is starting at a level P, you would have them color up to level P and date it. Then maybe the next month, all at the same time when they're choosing their goals and whatnot, you're going to have them keep recording their reading level, and hopefully again they'll see their progression as they go through reading levels. So that's all the information that's going to go in the My Goals and Reading Progress. The next tab is the reading records. So again, there's another tab, another color just to make it visual for the students. And then this is just where they're going to record their daily reading. So you would have them record the title, the author, the genre, and the number of pages. Just a standard reading log. However you have your reading log set up is fine. This is just what mine looks like. And then the next page is a genre wheel. And this I like to use to help students to kind of see if they are neglecting a genre or relying too heavily on another one. And this is just a very easy way for them to visually see the reading genres that they are reading in their independent reading time. So let's say they finish a mystery story, they're going to color in one of their circles in the mystery section of the genre wheel. Then they're going to go to historical fiction if they read historical fiction, and so on. And what this is really nice for is that as you meet with them in their conferences, you might suggest another reading genre if you notice that they are really heavily focused on one genre. You might suggest them to read another one. And this is great for parent-teacher conferences. It's just good data to have, but it's student-recorded data, which makes it really nice as well. Then you have your conferences with the teacher sheet. So you would have your own conference sheets. In my Getting Started in Readers workshop unit, I talk about how to conduct reading conferences with students, and you have your own sheet to fill out, but this is a sheet for them. It's going to be written in kid-friendly language, something that they can refer back to as they're working on. So let's say you meet with students every 10 days or however you work it out. You would date it, you would read with them, you would discuss their reading genre, you would discuss their progress, and you would write down things in kid-friendly language that you're discussing, and then give them some actionable steps of things that they can work on. So for example, if you notice in their reading genre wheel, they only are reading mysteries. You have all of these filled in and none of the other ones. Then you say, things to work on. Choose a new reading genre to explore. And then tell them when their next conference is going to be. And that way they can check back in with you and let you know how you're doing, how they are doing on the things that you discussed during your conferences. So that's it for the reading records section. The third section is your reading response section, and this is most likely going to be one of the thickest sections. This one and the next section that I'm going to show you is going to be the thickest section because you're going to have your students constantly adding new reading responses to this section. You might consider every quarter having the students take out their reading responses from that quarter, either hand them in, put them in some filing system, or perhaps even recycle them if you're no longer needing them. You may choose to take some samples out of there to put into your student data binder or however you keep student samples, but you may need to kind of purge some of the things within this section. So you have your reading response cover page, and then the first part of it is just a list of sample reading responses that students can use to respond to what they're reading in their individual reading time. So I have a section here for fiction, and I have a section for nonfiction. So on those days that you just want your students to pick their response, you can tell them to pick from one of these reading prompts, and they're just pretty standard. Describe an interesting or important character, talk about the setting, compare two characters, things like that. And then same for nonfiction. I think, I wonder, facts I learned, and so on. The next type of reading response that I've used is a place for students to record their thoughts about what they're reading. So I would give them a stack of Post-it notes, and these are going to fit those Post-it notes right there, or you could just have them right on there. I like the idea of using Post-it notes because then this sheet becomes reusable, and I could just have them either turn in their Post-it notes or keep them in there until I look at them and then I can take them out, however you want to do that. Or if you want, you can just have them right in there. So they would put the book title, and then they're on page 2. They think X, Y, and Z about what they're reading, and they record it. Then they read a few more pages, record their thoughts. So it's just a generic thing, just a way to encourage students to write about what they're reading and to think really in depth about what they're reading. So that's the My Thoughts On sheet, and it continues on to the back. And then reading tasks response sheet. This is if you give them a specific task. So let's say in your mini lesson, you're talking about making connections. So you're going to have them make 3 connections during their reading time. So they would date it. They would write, make connections with my reading here, and then they would record their thoughts here. Now I would provide students either with lined or unlined boxes like you see here, just in case if you work with younger students, you might want to provide those lines for them, or maybe even bigger sections if you have older students and they're going to be writing a lot more. But this is just one version of this sheet. And of course you can give them different versions depending on the task. So if you're asking them to draw something or visualize, then the no lines work great because then they don't have to write or draw over the lines. So that's that reading task. And then I always keep a bunch of loose leaf notebook paper in this section. That's for when they are responding to these types of responses and just writing. So you would make sure you want to go over how you want them to complete that, whether it's putting a date or writing out the response that they're doing, however you want to do that. Now you could have them do this in a separate notebook. I had the loose leaf notebook paper in here simply because it's just nice to have everything in one spot, but you could certainly have them do it in a separate composition notebook or even a spiral notebook, which you could then put right inside the binder here. So a bunch of those papers. The final section is the reading resource section. So this is going to be the section where you put any special handouts that you give your students that you want them to be able to refer to time and time again. So there's a table of contents to kind of help them keep organization of all their resources. So each time you give them a handout, you're going to have them date it, title the resource, and then they're going to write a little, page number down at the bottom of the corner that they can keep track of the pages. And then things like, for example, in my Getting Started in Readers Workshop unit, one of the lessons is talking about word attack strategies. So I have this kind of little cheat sheet here for them with simple word attack strategies that they can use. And this is something that they can refer to all year long. If it's something that's not going to be something they'll refer to over and over, you may not want to include it in this section. This is just for those papers that you know will be really helpful for them during Readers Workshop time. So I have a word attack strategies cheat sheet. I have the definitions of the reading genres. Since in the beginning of the notebook, they're recording reading genres, I have codes for them to use so they don't have to always write out traditional literature. They can just write TL. And then it gives them the definition in kid-friendly language. That's there for them to use. Nonfiction and fiction genres are on separate sheets. And then I have some comprehension strategies that they can use, the name of the strategy and the definition and how they use it. So it's just helpful for them to be able to look back to. And then of course, if you want them to look back, you yourself as the teacher have to refer back to it often so that they're not just putting it in their reading resources section and then never again looking at it. So you want to make sure to encourage them to look at it by you also referring to it often. So those are the components of my reader's notebook, and yours may look a little differently. You might have different names for your sections, but I like having it all in one spot. Students really get to use their reader's notebook pretty much in every lesson that I have, whether it's responding and certainly recording their reading log for the day. So hopefully those are some tips and strategies that you can use to create your own reader's notebook.